She dropped her coat on the floor like it didn't belong to her anymore. Not on the hanger, not on the chair, just right there on the damn floor. She walked past me, grabbed a drink from the fridge, and slammed it shut without even looking at me. That wasn't new. What was new was the smell, someone else's cologne, not mine. A scent I'd never worn, would never wear, and certainly hadn't bought. I didn't say anything right away. I stared at the coat, then the drink, then her, and then she turned to me and said it like a match to gasoline. "You're unbelievable. I'm not a child, and I don't need your permission to go out." I felt the words hit me before they even registered in my ears. That was the moment. That precise moment. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask her where she'd been or who he was. I didn't even blink. I just said what I'd been afraid to say for years. "Fine, go. But if you do, don't come back. I'm done." She froze like she didn't expect me to mean it. She was halfway into tying her shoelace and her fingers just stopped. She didn't even look up, just stared at the floor, paused, and then without a word stood up, opened the door, and left. No slam, no dramatic pause, no look over her shoulder, just quiet footsteps into a hallway that swallowed her whole. And now I'm sitting on the kitchen floor still staring at that coat. The worst part, it's still warm. 2 hours have passed. My phone's lighting up from people I don't even know. Numbers not saved. Voices from some parallel life that clearly went on without me knowing. One text said, "Didn't think she'd actually do it. Respect for holding your line, man." Another said, "Now you know. I tried to warn you last summer." Warn me about what? I didn't know who to reply to first, or if I even should. I felt like I'd walked into a movie that had already been playing for years, and somehow I was the one holding popcorn asking what I missed. I went to the bedroom, her side of the closet. Empty. Not just empty. Scrubbed. Not a shirt, not a sock, not a perfume bottle. Gone, like she knew this was coming. And the final blow? She took my laptop. Not hers. Mine. The one I used for freelance work. The one with client files, invoices, tax documents. She didn't even take her charger, but she took my ability to earn for the week. I sat on the bed, still hearing the soft echo of that door clicking shut behind her. All I ever asked was just that she'd tell me where she's going. Not because I owned her, not because I was paranoid, but because I cared. Because I wanted to cook her dinner, because I wanted to know if she'd be safe. And somehow that made me the enemy. This isn't a story about one fight. It's about 1,000 quiet ones I swallowed, hoping they'd go away. But now, finally, I see the shape of the storm I've been sitting in. It had her name on it the whole time, and I think I just stepped out of it for the first time in years. Allaire. I thought I was prepared for anything. I wasn't. After she left, I did something stupid. I told myself I wasn't going to spiral, that I wouldn't become that guy. The one who snoops through phones, digs through old photos, loses his dignity trying to assemble a picture from pieces that never quite fit together. But the thing is, when someone walks out of your life without flinching, it's not the silence that haunts you. It's the holes, the empty moments that suddenly beg for explanation. And once you start poking at them, they multiply. So yeah, I went digging. First, I opened our shared email account, the one we used for bills, rental agreements, random subscriptions. She never used it for anything personal, or so I thought. The inbox was mostly clean, nothing suspicious. But the trash folder, a different story. Hidden among coupons and expired confirmations, I found a string of emails. One from a reservation site, a hotel, Not in our city, not even in our state. She had booked a room 2 weeks ago in Savannah, Georgia. 2 guests, 3 nights, paid in full with a card I didn't recognize. She had deleted the confirmation minutes after receiving it. If I hadn't checked the trash, I'd never have known. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I felt like I had fallen through the floor because that weekend I remembered it. She had told me she was going on a women's wellness retreat with her coworker, Nyla. Massages, yoga, silence, journaling. I remember because I had bought her one of those refillable glass water bottles as a send-off gift. She laughed and said it was so dorky it was cute. I believed her. I kissed her goodbye and told her to send pictures. She never did. The hotel confirmation didn't mention a name for the second guest, but I didn't need one, because 30 minutes after I found that email, I got a message on Instagram from someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year. Someone I didn't even know still followed me. His name's Micah. We used to work together. Quiet guy. Always wore shirts a size too big. Always avoided eye contact. I thought he was just shy. Turns out he was observant. Very observant. His message was simple. No emojis, no punctuation, just, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but now that she's gone, I think you deserve to know. I stared at that message for 5 minutes before replying. I didn't even type words, just a single question mark. That's all I could manage. He didn't answer right away. In fact, it took him over an hour. But when he did, he sent a voice message. I braced myself. Hit play. His voice shook a little. Last summer, the fundraiser for Ren is firm. I saw her with someone. Tall guy, shaved head, looked military. They were arguing in the parking lot, but like intimately. The way couples argue when they think no one's watching. I didn't want to assume. I told myself maybe it was her cousin or something, but it wasn't. And later that night, I saw her leave with him in a black Jeep. I'm sorry, Alder. I really am. I dropped the phone. The worst part, I remembered that fundraiser. She told me it was invite only, corporate only. Told me I wouldn't fit in. I stayed home and reorganized our bookshelves while she was across town with him. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I took that hotel address from the deleted email and ran a reverse image search using the hotel's tagged photos. And in one of the user-submitted pics from that exact weekend, she's there, not posing, not even in focus, just in the background walking past the pool in a red dress I'd never seen before, holding hands with a man whose face is mostly turned away. But it was enough. The way her fingers wrapped around his, the tilt of her head as she looked up at him, that body language didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to someone she knew intimately, someone she trusted, someone she chose. And me? I was at home that weekend, folding laundry, cooking myself soup, wondering if she was journaling about growth and balance. The betrayal wasn't the worst part. It was the realization that people knew. Maybe not many, but enough. Enough to have seen and said nothing. Enough to leave me walking around with spinach in my teeth while they washed her flirt at the buffet. Micah said he didn't want to interfere. I get it. People don't want to be the bad guy. But I would have given anything to have known sooner. And now I'm left with this hollow version of my life. Our home feels like a stage set. Her absence is loud, but what's louder is the silence before this. The hundreds of moments she had to come clean to tell me the truth, to give me even a sliver of honesty. She didn't. She lied with confidence, smiled while doing it. And the scary part is I never even saw it coming. I think the question isn't why did she leave, it's how long has she been gone while still standing next to me. And if that doesn't haunt a man, I don't know what does. Alder, I didn't sleep. I didn't even lie down. I sat at the edge of the couch until the sun dragged itself across the windows like a witness too ashamed to look at me. The house was still dark, even when it wasn't. Every corner now felt like it was hiding something. Every sound, every creak, every hum of the refrigerator felt suspicious, like something was waiting to surface. By morning, I had a plan. Not a good one, not a healthy one, but a plan. I opened her old laptop, the one she thought was dead, the one she never bothered to wipe when she upgraded. I had fixed it months ago, quietly when she dropped it and said it was trash. I didn't tell her. I don't even know why. Maybe a part of me always knew I'd need it. Or maybe I just liked the idea of holding on to one thing she'd given up on. The desktop was nearly empty, just a folder named Work Docs and another one titled Archive_2022. I clicked the latter. Inside screenshots, dozens, maybe more. Most of them were harmless memes, quotes, vacation ideas, but buried deep in there were screenshots of messages. Not her own, not one she sent. One she received from him. His name wasn't in the messages, just an initial C, but the tone familiar, sickeningly familiar. Tell him we're at a training. He'll believe it. He always does. I miss that perfume. You wore it the first night. Are you sure he doesn't suspect anything? You're a damn good liar. And then a photo. Her in a hotel bed taken from above. Her eyes closed. Her mouth opened slightly like she was half laughing or saying something. I could see her shoulder bare. Her wedding ring on the nightstand. My stomach turned. But here's where it got worse. Much worse. Another message read, "He shook my hand at that retreat last fall. Had no idea." Kind of surreal, honestly. That line hit me like a truck because I remembered the retreat. We had gone upstate to a little resort that was supposed to be team bonding for her company and partners. There had been spouses' dinner the first night, and I'd gone. I did shake hands with someone tall, military build, buzzed hair, quiet eyes. I had made some joke about the wine being too warm, and he laughed like it physically pained him. That was him. That was C. And I had smiled. I had thanked him for helping organize the weekend. My body went cold. I stood up, dizzy. This wasn't some shadow figure from the internet. This wasn't a bartender or stranger from a conference. This was someone I'd spoken to, someone I'd shaken hands with, someone who looked me in the eye, knowing full well what he was doing to me behind my back. And then I realized something else. She wasn't a new man in her life. He was old. Very old. A name from years ago, from her past. A name she only ever whispered once during a late-night story about a mistake that taught her everything. His name was Corwin. I hadn't thought about Corwin in nearly a decade. Back then, she had said he was toxic, that he used to manipulate her, that she finally walked away and swore she'd never look back. I remember holding her that night. I remember her crying, trembling, telling me she was so lucky to have someone gentle like me. She lied. She didn't walk away. She circled back quietly, carefully, like she was returning to a drug. And she let me play the role of safety net while she went chasing that old fire again. I sat down. My hands were shaking. And then my phone buzzed. It was a calendar notification, something I hadn't looked at in weeks. A shared event, anniversary dinner, 3 days. I had booked a quiet table at a place called Ember Ridge. I had requested the corner booth with the view of the water. I even wrote a note in the reservation celebrating 11 wonderful years. Please bring something sweet for dessert. I stared at the screen and laughed. A dry, hollow laugh that sounded nothing like me. I had been planning a celebration while she was planning an exit. And here's the truly insane part. She never intended to tell me, not even after leaving, not even after slamming that door. She was going to let me figure it out. Let me fall apart alone slowly with no closure, No explanation. Just gaps and echoes and silent betrayal. A slow burn of the soul. That's what Corwin had written in one of the messages, too. He won't ask. He never asks. That's the best part. They weren't just mocking me. They were counting on me staying quiet. But now I had a name, a timeline, a face, a memory. And something sharp inside me was beginning to harden. Not anger exactly, not yet, but something colder, something clearer. A line I didn't know I was capable of drawing, but one I would never cross back over. I was no longer wondering if she'd come back. I was now deciding what I'd do when she tried. Alder. The doorbell rang at 3:12 p.m. Not a knock, not a buzz, just that single hollow chime echoing through the house like it didn't belong. I wasn't expecting anything. No packages, no visitors, no explanations wrapped in cardboard. But something about the timing, the eerie stillness that followed the ring made my stomach twist. I opened the door cautiously. No one was there. Just a medium-sized box sitting on the doormat. No label, no return address, just my name scrolled across the top in all caps with a thick black marker. Alder, no last name, no handwriting I recognized. I hesitated before picking it up. It wasn't heavy, but something inside shifted loosely when I tilted it, like a book or a frame. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table and stared at it for a good 2 minutes before slicing the tape open. What I found inside shattered whatever parts of me were still pretending to be intact. At the very top was a sealed envelope. My name again. Inside just a short note typed on plain white paper. She didn't deserve your silence. You deserve the truth. I'm sorry I waited this long. Neela. I froze. Neela, the coworker from the fake wellness retreat, the one she used as her cover story, the one she swore was just a brunch friend. I had only met Neela a few times. She was always polite but distant, like she was holding something back behind every smile. I reached into the box again and pulled out a stack of photographs, all printed in glossy 4x6. Not screenshots, not digital copies. Actual photos, dozens of them. Each one told a piece of the story I didn't want to see but needed to. Rena and Corwin at restaurants, in hotel lobbies, in a cabin, probably the same one from the fall retreat. In one photo, Rena's legs were draped over his lap, her head thrown back in laughter. Another showed them by a river, wrapped in a blanket, sipping from a shared thermos. But the one that hit hardest was one taken from inside a moving car. Rena in the passenger seat, her hand resting on Corwin's knee as he drove. Her wedding ring hand. My wedding ring. I sat there holding the photo like it was burning me. These weren't just candid moments. They were collected, curated, intimate memories captured deliberately by someone who knew they weren't supposed to exist. And the fact that Nyla had them and kept them told me more than I was ready for. But she hadn't stopped at pictures. Beneath the stack was a USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop with trembling hands. A folder appeared instantly. Renit, Truth. Inside were voice memos. 5 of them labeled by date. I clicked the oldest one. Nyla's voice came through, quiet, nervous, but steady. I'm recording this in case I ever grow a spine. Renit doesn't know I know, but I saw them. The first time was after that marketing dinner in June. They were already outside when I came out for a smoke. He had his hand around her waist. She saw me, and for a second I thought she'd flinch, but she just stared at me, almost daring me to say something. I played the next one. She's using you, Alder. I know it's not my place to say it, but it's true. She's not confused. She's not in some crisis. She's just cruel. I tried to talk to her and she laughed. She said, Alder's too soft to do anything. He's safe. He doesn't make demands. I don't know what you did to deserve this, but you deserve better than this silence. By the time I reached the last recording, I was gripping the table to stay grounded. They're planning something. I overheard them on a call. She said she's going to take her name off the lease and transfer her half of the joint account soon. She said you won't notice until it's done, that you never look. She's not just leaving, she's getting you first. I'm sorry I waited this long. I hope this gets to you before she does. I sat in the quiet that followed like a man sitting at his own funeral. I wasn't just abandoned. I was a mark. A comfortable fool to extract security from before vanishing into her next thrill. She hadn't been confused. She hadn't made a mistake. She had built an exit strategy. Cold, systematic, precise. And still. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't breaking things. I just felt this unbelievable grief. Not just for the marriage, but for every night I defended her in my head. For every time I told myself she was tired or stressed or human. For every dinner I cooked, thinking I was keeping something alive that had already died. I went to the bedroom and checked the drawer with our files. Sure enough, her name was gone from the lease copy. I checked the banking app. The joint account emptied. Nothing but $14.82 left and a string of withdrawals I hadn't authorized. She timed it perfectly on a Friday evening when banks close early and no one's answering phones. She had cleaned me out, but she hadn't accounted for Nyla. And now I had every piece of the puzzle. I just had to decide what to do with it. There's a quiet rage building in me now. Not a violent one, not revenge. Just clarity. A new kind of stillness, and the kind of pain that no apology will ever fix. She left the door. I left it shut, but I think she's about to knock again. And this time, I won't even get up. Alder. It was a little past 7 p.m. when I heard her key in the lock. Yes, her key. I hadn't changed the locks yet. Maybe that was my last threat of denial. Some small flicker inside me holding on to the idea that closure required face-to-face contact. Or maybe I just didn't think she'd dare show her face again. But there it was. That familiar click, the metallic rattle, and the soft swing of the door opening like it always had. I didn't get up. I didn't even look directly at her. I was sitting on the living room couch facing the blank TV screen, the remote in one hand, and her betrayal, her entire betrayal crackling in my chest like dry leaves underfoot. She walked in wearing that same smug silence I used to mistake for confidence. Her heels clacked once against the tile before she slipped them off. She set her purse on the console like nothing had changed, like she hadn't evaporated into someone else's arms just 3 nights ago. "Hey," she said, flat and casual, as if "hey" could erase all of it. "Did you eat?" I turned my head slowly like my neck was made of rusted hinges. I looked at her. Not at the version I'd spent years loving, but at the woman standing in front of me now. Her eyes flicked toward the dining table where the empty USB drive sat alone under the light. She didn't recognize it yet. Her gaze hovered a second too long. Then she smiled. Not a real one, a calculated one. Polished. Practiced. She had used that same smile with strangers when she needed something. I said nothing, just watched. She walked toward the kitchen, opened the fridge, peeked in, and grabbed a bottle of wine. My wine, the kind I only bought for anniversaries. She uncorked it like it meant nothing, like it wasn't wrapped in a memory. "You're quiet," she said, pouring 2 glasses, assuming how arrogant that I would take one. "I know," I said. She paused, mid-pour. Just a flicker, then continued. "Set both glasses on the counter. I needed space, she said after a beat. I wasn't trying to be cruel. You've been so intense lately. I needed to breathe, clear my head. I nodded. Did Coyne help you clear it? That name sliced the room in half. Her hand froze near the glass. Her face didn't crack, not immediately. She stared at me for a second. Her lips parted, one breath hanging on the edge of whatever lie she was building. Then she said it. The thing I'll never forget. Not because it shocked me, but because it proved how far gone she really was. Are we really going to do this? You going to start digging through my past now? I blinked. You're calling last weekend your past? She exhaled sharply. I don't owe you an explanation for everything I do. I'm an individual. I can have relationships that aren't about you. Not when we're married, I said. Not when you're stealing from our accounts and calling it growth. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled her eyes. I moved the money so I could think without you hovering. Don't make it a crime. There it was, the gaslight, the tiny flickering flame meant to make me question my own clarity. She was trying to flip the script again, but this time I had the receipts, the photos, the recordings, the voice of the woman she used as her alibi, now turned witness. I stood up slowly, walked to the dining table, picked up the USB, and placed it in her hand. She looked at it, confused. What's this? It's what Mila gave me, I said. Photos, recordings, timeline, context, the truth. Her face didn't crumble. That's what got me. She didn't gasp or cry or beg. She just went still like a statue trying to decide what expression to wear next. I watched her mentally skin the chessboard, calculate how many lies she could still get away with. Then she laughed, a single short, sharp bark of disbelief. Wow. So, she's the one who finally turned. That's rich. I tilted my head. You're not even surprised. Oh, I knew it was only a matter of time, she said, her voice lower now, almost bored. Nyla's always been dramatic, always needed to play the savior. No, I said. She just finally stopped helping you burn me alive. She looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw her as she truly was. Not the woman I married, not the woman I loved, but the woman she became, crafted through manipulation, silent exits, and 1,000 small betrayals that I never recognized until it was too late. She didn't apologize, not once. Instead, she stepped closer and said something that froze the marrow in my bones. I thought you'd never find out, she whispered. And honestly, I was okay with that. I stepped back, not out of fear, but to protect the small, wounded part of me that still wanted to believe this was all a misunderstanding. That part was dying now, quietly. Finally, I want you gone, I said, my voice steady. Tonight, her eyebrows rose. I live here, Alder. My name's still on. No, it's not, I interrupted. I checked the lease. You removed it quietly. Before the wellness retreat, you were prepping your escape. This isn't your home anymore. She stared at me, long, cold, and then she smiled again, that same fake smile, and said, Wow, you're really not who I thought you were. You're right, I said. I'm finally not. She didn't argue after that. She took the USB, her wine, and walked to the bedroom to collect a bag she had already packed. She must have known the truth would catch up eventually. She had her things ready. That alone told me everything. And then she left again, but this time without a single word. I didn't watch her go. I just closed the door, locked it, and stood in the quiet. Not sad, not relieved, just still. And in that stillness, for the first time in years, I felt real. Alder. 3 days passed in silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the healing kind. The kind that drips down the walls like damp air in a locked room. I cleaned out her closet, not in a fury, not with loud music and dramatic tears. I did it methodically, folding every blouse, every scarf, even the stupid leather boots she never wore but insisted on keeping. I boxed it all, labeled it Rena Final, and left it by the front door like a corpse waiting for collection. She didn't call, she didn't text, and I didn't reach out. I kept expecting some dramatic finale, a voicemail, a long-winded apology, a monologue about how I never saw her or listened. But nothing came, just a stretch of silence that almost convinced me she was done, until the envelope appeared. It was slipped under the door sometime between dusk and disappointment. I found it when I went to check if I'd remembered to lock up. No stamp, no return address, just my name again in that same uppercase scroll, but this time not written by her. I could tell immediately the handwriting was smaller, smoother, and trembling slightly. I took it to the kitchen table, sat under the flickering pendant light, and opened it with hands I thought had finally stopped shaking. Inside was a single handwritten letter, the kind no one sends anymore, the kind that feels heavier than it should. I unfolded it slowly, and the first line made my throat close up. You don't know me, but I know too much about you. I wasn't supposed to feel guilty, but I do, and I need you to know the truth. Not from her, not from hearsay, from me. The signature at the bottom. Corwin. I sat back in the chair, heart crawling into my throat. For a long moment, I just stared at the ink. This wasn't a man trying to gloat. The handwriting was too unsteady. The words too deliberately chosen. I forced myself to keep reading. It started again 2 years ago. She messaged me. I didn't go looking for her. I just moved back into the city after a deployment, and she reached out on an old email thread we'd used in college. At first it was small, catching up, checking in. Then it shifted. She said things were dull at home, that you were gentle, sweet, but not exciting, that she missed feeling alive. I told her I didn't want to ruin her life. She said it was already ruined. I believed her. I stopped. I had to. I closed the letter, pressed my palms into my eyes, and sat there in darkness for several minutes. But eventually I opened it again because part of me had to know. The truth is, Alder, she never lied about you. You were exactly who she said. Dependable, kind, predictable. I just didn't realize until recently that those were all the things I should have envied. I thought I was the escape, the secret adventure. But somewhere in the middle of all of it, I saw how she talked about you. Not like a person, like a character in a story she was rewriting. I asked her once after one of our meetups if she'd ever leave you. She laughed, said you'd never make her, that you'd beg her to stay. I think that was the moment I started seeing through the fantasy. My jaw clenched, not from rage, but from something colder, from the realization that even he, the other man, saw what I refused to see. That I'd been holding the marriage together like a child gluing a broken vase with hope. I stopped seeing her 4 months ago. She never told you. She just pretended we were still something so she could keep the drama going. She liked the tension, said it made her feel desired. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I needed to tell you that it wasn't all recent. It wasn't a fling. It was long and ugly and filled with lies on every side, including mine. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just hope when you rebuild yourself, you leave her pieces behind. Corwin, no threats, no defense, no justification, just an admission. I folded the letter and sat back again, my mind spiraling, not from the content, but from what it meant. Rena had painted herself as impulsive, wild, untamable. But what she really was calculating. She had never planned to run away with Corwin. She had planned to use him as a tool to escape boredom, responsibility, and reality, without ever paying the price for it. And when that fell apart, she leaned back on me like I was a backup battery. She never lost me. She stored me. And maybe the most horrifying part of all was that I had made it easy. For years, I convinced myself that love meant endurance, that patience was the highest virtue, that if I waited long enough, quietly enough, things would fix themselves. They didn't. But now I had something no letter could unwrite. I had clarity. And the next morning I started the part no one expects from a man like me. Not shouting, not revenge, not fury. I started the erasure slowly, carefully, strategically. Phone plan canalled. Joint storage units cleared. Insurance policies updated. Passwords changed. She left quietly, so I would too. But this time, I'd leave nothing behind because she wanted a new life. She can have one, but it's going to be built on silence, absence, and locked doors. Allaire. It came through email. Not a call, not a knock on the door, not even a text, which was her favorite way of avoiding eye contact. Just a subject line, screaming into the void at 2:47 a.m. Please, Alder, let's talk. I didn't open it, not right away. I stared at it while brushing my teeth, while stirring coffee, while folding laundry that didn't belong to anyone but me now. I let it sit there like a ticking clock, not because I needed time to process, but because I already knew what it would say. It wasn't about remorse. It was about control. But by mid-afternoon, curiosity clawed through my spine. I clicked it open, not because I believed in her sincerity, but because I wanted to see how far she'd reached to pull me back into her storm. Her words spilled across the screen like sugar-coated poison. I've had time to think. I made mistakes. I got lost. You didn't deserve the way I left. I know you probably hate me right now, but maybe we can talk. Just one conversation. I need to explain it in person. I think if you heard me, you'd understand why I did what I did. It ended with, I still have the necklace you gave me our first winter together. I wear it sometimes when I miss feeling safe. That was the hook, the bait, the line I used to fall for. Not this time. I didn't reply, but I knew she wouldn't stop there. And she didn't. By the next morning, she showed up. I saw her through the window before she knocked. She was wearing that same green coat, the one she always claimed made her feel cinematic. Her hair was down, no makeup, no expression, just standing on my porch like she hadn't raised the life we built 3 weeks earlier. She didn't see me. I stood behind the curtain, heart steady, breath slow. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded piece of paper and tucked it into the doorframe. Then she hesitated. For a moment, I saw her hand hover like she wanted to knock. But she didn't. She just stood there for 5, maybe 6 seconds, then turned and walked back down the steps. I waited until her car was gone, then I retrieved the paper. It wasn't a letter, not exactly. It was a copy of an apartment listing, 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, located 15 minutes from here. Her name circled at the bottom with a handwritten note. If you ever want to talk, this is where I'll be. Not running, just ready. I stared at the ink until it blurred. She still didn't get it. She still thought this was a story that needed rewriting, that we were somewhere in the 3rd act, and she could walk back into the frame, deliver a monologue, and rewrite the ending. but I had already closed the book. I wasn't in love. I wasn't in rage. I wasn't even in grief anymore. I was free, and freedom didn't feel like fireworks or grand declarations. It felt like stillness, like brushing my teeth without waiting for a door to open, like watching a show without pausing to check if she'd text, like knowing deep in my bones that silence wasn't a threat anymore. It was peace. But just when I thought the final page had turned, something unexpected happened. That evening I received a call, unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but something in my gut said to answer, "Hello." There was a pause, then a familiar voice. "Shaky, young, mister. Alder, this is... I don't know if you remember me. My name is Emery. I'm Rena's cousin." It took me a second. I hadn't seen Emery since they were barely out of high school, crashing at our place for a few days after a family fallout. We barely spoke back then. Rena handled everything. I just made breakfast. "I know this is weird," Emery said, voice trembling, "but I found something, and I think you should see it." I asked what it was. Emery hesitated, then said, "It's not just about Corwin. There's someone else from before." I didn't say anything then because I thought it was just drama, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. My breath caught. "What do you mean, someone else?" "I think she's done this before," Emery said softly. "Not just once. Not just with Corwin. I think she's been doing this for a long time. And I think she's not done." There was silence between us, a weight that settled like dust after a long collapse. "I'm not trying to start trouble," Emery added, "but if you want to know the whole truth, I can show you." I nodded, forgetting they couldn't see me. "Yeah," I whispered. "I think I need to know." And suddenly what I thought was the final chapter cracked wide open again. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd made a habit of it. And now the real unraveling was about to begin. Alder Emery met me at a coffee shop 2 towns over. It was a quiet place. Small patio, no music, just the low hum of people minding their own business. They looked nervous when they arrived, holding a worn manila folder like it was full of glass. Their hands shook when they passed it to me. "I debated whether to come," Emery said. "I started, but then I thought, you deserve to see the full picture. She's my cousin, but I've seen what she does to people." Inside the folder were printed messages, old social media conversations, screenshots of email exchanges, even fragments of journal entries Rena had apparently shared years ago with someone she was seeing long before Corwin. A man named the Married with Kids. The pattern was unmistakable. She found cracks in people's lives and wedged herself into the fractures. She didn't want connection. She wanted control, the thrill of it, the performance, the drama. And when it faded, she moved on like smoke slipping through a window. But for the first time, none of it shocked me. None of it broke me, because by then, I had already chosen something else. I thanked Emery, shook their hand, and left the folder on the table. I didn't need to bring it home. I didn't need to archive any more pain. Instead, I drove to the coast, not for a dramatic moment, not to toss rings into the sea or shout at the sky. I went there because I remembered a bench, an old one, with peeling paint, where I once sat with a sketchbook and drew waves for hours before Rena, before the noise. And I sat there again, this time with nothing but my own breath and the sound of water hitting rocks. I didn't feel empty. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't bracing for silence or begging for scraps of love. I was just there. A week later, I began making small changes. I started teaching piano in person again, first at a youth center, then at a community library. Kids with calloused fingers and bright eyes, learning scales and making mistakes. I found joy in the sound of music played too loudly and too badly. I started sketching again, just for myself. I threw away her old wine glasses and replaced them with hand-thrown mugs from a local artist who talked too much and charged too little. I even started talking to someone. Not dating, just talking. Her name is Leora. We met during a community mural project. She paints sunflowers and forgets her keys in her bike basket. She doesn't ask too many questions. She listens and she laughs loud, open, real laughter. I don't know where it'll go. And that's the beautiful part, because I'm not rushing anymore. I'm not patching holes or translating silence. I'm just living fully, honestly, quietly. I sometimes think about the man I used to be, the man who folded his pain into dinner napkins and swallowed his fear with smiles. I loved her deeply, yes. But I loved her in a way that required me to disappear. And that wasn't love. That was survival. Now I cook for one, but it's a feast. I go to bed alone, but I sleep like I'm finally home. And if she ever walks back into this story again, I won't need to slam the door, because I've already built a whole new house. One she can't find, one she can't enter.